Good evening. You're with us in Your Interest. I'm Shweta Kothari. The recent tragic death of 26-year-old Anna Sebastian, a young EY Pune employee, has thrown spotlight on critical issues of corporate responsibility in ensuring well-being of employees. Now, reports of her being overwhelmed by assigned as well as unassigned work, alongside her mother's accusations of a toxic work culture that glorifies hard work and overwork, have raised alarms. The case underscores the importance of organizations proactively addressing employee burnout. Now, EY has expressed a deep sadness over the loss and emphasized their commitment to employee well-being. However, mere statements of regret are insufficient. Companies must implement effective systems to prevent workplace exhaustion. According to the International Labour Organization and its reports, India ranks second globally for extended working hours, with 51% of its workforce clocking over 49 hours a week. The reality makes corporate intervention even more necessary. To mitigate burnout, firms must focus on creating a sustainable work environment. This involves setting up clear boundaries on work hours, enforcing break policies, offering mental health support, and providing platforms for employees to voice their concern without fear of retaliation. Additionally, lenders must be trained to recognize signs of employee burnout early and ensure workload is distributed fairly. Promoting a culture that values employee well-being over extreme productivity is essential to creating a healthier workplace. Now, EY's case has emphasized that organizations must also go beyond corporate rhetoric and ensure physical as well as mental well-being of their employees. Ignoring these responsibilities not only affect employee health, but can also lead to legal ramifications and reputational damage, such as what happened in this case. To talk more about the case and what it really means for organization, joining us is Harish Bijoor. He's a brand guru and founder of Harish Bijoor Consultants. Harish, thank you very much, sir, for taking time out. I think we'll begin with the first question, and that is, where does the buck really stop? In Anna's case, particularly, where a 26-year-old really succumbed to what her mother says was overwork, exhaustion, where does the buck stop?
Well, the sad thing is that this has been a terrible, terrible incident. And this is one incident which has been brought to the fore. And one incident means there must be n numbers of such incidents which don't come to the fore. Burnout, etc., is a reality of the great Indian corporate culture. And where does the buck stop? I think the buck stops with companies. The buck stops with the corporate employer. Because between the employee and the employer is meant to have better resources, better forward thinking, better planning, better systems, better processes. And what happened to all these is the key question. And therefore, I think the onus of creating a good workplace, of a non-toxic workplace, rests with the employer. Full stop.
Okay. And the reason I asked you that question, Harish, because there's been a lot of conversation among working class employees, you know, including our newsrooms, where we try and discuss how certain jobs, including working in the Big Four, is a high pressure job. And the people that we've been speaking to have mixed reactions. Some say that if you can't take the heat, get out of the kitchen. But how do you really ensure that the kitchen is not heated beyond a person's ability to take it? Because there are, you know, let's honestly accept, there are certain workplaces and certain work which are far more laborious compared to other work.
On the kitchen analogy, I would say that we need cooler kitchens, much cooler kitchens than we have today. If you look around, there are 21 distinct workspaces in India, which are very high tension workplaces. And media is one of them, of course, and the newsroom is equally one of them. So if you look at it, I think it's extremely critical to take care of those employees who can't take the heat. And I think, employers must have the ability to sense who can and who can't take the heat. And particularly new joinees. New joinees must be mollycoddled in the first 11 months of being in a company, because they're the most insecure set of people. Firstly, they have left their homes and they've moved to a new city altogether. Secondly, they're overawed by the work culture. Thirdly, they want to prove themselves no end. They want to burn the candle at both ends. So somebody, a guide, a mentor, needs to be out there holding hands at least for the 11 months, the
Okay.
first 11 months.
But you know, Harish, a lot of employees, including your consultancy firms, will say we have a lot of workload, and every time you sign up to work for us, you know what's coming your way. So you need to be prepared to give us the output that we demand of you. So it's easy said than done to be able to mollycoddle when you have to meet deadlines and where you have promised output to your clients and that you need to deliver on time.
Well, if you don't take care of your employees in these early days, if you say that we have too much of pressure, if you pass on every bit of pressure to the junior most employee out there who's doing all the running around, then this is exactly what will happen.
Okay.
Do you want this kind of thing to happen again and again and again in your corporate workplace? I think choice is yours, corporate India.
Okay, well, rightly said, choice is yours, because Harish, this has become a sort of an issue which is persistent now. We were also talking about similar such issues where people have jumped to death, some have committed suicides, others have died of burnout. In this case, this is a possible case of a burnout. The government of India is already investigating the matter. EY has released a statement, but it also goes on to talk about a culture that promotes overwork. You have veterans in industry, Harish, who talk about working 70 hours a week if you want to succeed, and if you don't do that, you're not likely to succeed or make it in the corporate India. In a culture like that, how do you really change the foundations of what we've been taught from the very beginning?
You know, this business of how many hours an employee must work, I have a take on that, and the take is very simple one. The employee must decide how many hours to work, not the employer. And the employee must benefit and get all those salaries, bonuses, etc., basis the number of hours they work. So an employee can tomorrow say that I want to work 30 hours a week, full stop. Another employee says I can work 90 hours a week. So be it. But then the choice must be of the employee. It should not be a choice made by the employer. It should not be a choice pushed down the employee's throat by the employer. And that is a fine point to note.
Okay, and in this case, you know, Harish, it's important to point out that EY already has a human right policy. It is committed, as it says, to protect people's right. But this is a blatant violation of any such policy. And EY just being one of those firms, we heard today from a former Deloitte employee talking about why he had to leave because of the work pressure and and his inability to cope. Many such employees are now coming out why they left their workplace, how toxic it was to work at their workplace. What must we do at a corporate level to actually change it? Because there are policies in place, but they're never really implemented in spirit.
Importantly, the employee does not get the kind of an authority to decide what he, she, or they wants to do within an organization. And I think that's the first thing that should be handed over to them. The employee must decide how much they want to work, how many hours they want to work, and therefore what kind of a career they want to build for themselves. And I think apart from that, I think employers must, as I said, mollycoddle the first 11 months. And after that, when the employee has settled down, it's a different matter because, employees will do exactly what they want as they keep growing up. They become more savvy, they become more intelligent in the way they handle their bosses. And the last point is toxic bosses. We still haven't spoken that subject. I mean, 73.4% of all employees leave their companies in India because of their immediate bosses, not because of their companies, their brands, their HR,
but Harish,
but
isn't
because of the
that a
workload.
reflection of the culture that a company also promotes? Often you see toxic bosses because that's the culture, that's what they are getting. So they're really passing it down to their, the people they're working under, or people who are working for them, rather, their team members.
This pass the poison culture, I think that needs to stop some way or the other. Otherwise, we're going to kill ourselves in more ways than one. And therefore, I think, this is not an issue of the big four at all. It happens in literally every other corporate space. It's happening in government spaces. It's happening in media, entertainment, maybe 6 other verticals. So let's not hold it only to the big four. I mean, literally it's everywhere.
Absolutely.
We need to stop it.
We need to stop it. We need to stop it now because, we were also running through some of those figures which are coming out of surveys done internationally that tell you that India is one of the most overworked countries. In fact, the second or third most overworked country in the world, where an average employee clocks in about 46 work hours. Harish, does that come as a surprise to you? And from a brand's perspective, is that good branding or bad branding? Because, you know, a lot of people take pride in the fact that we are a country, a people that deliver despite the workload, despite the mounting pressure, odd work hours. We believe in delivering, and perhaps that's why we stand out. We take a lot of pride in it. So perhaps I think we need to really change the way we also look at Indian employees and Indians per se as workers vis-a-vis our foreign counterparts, our Western counterparts.
You know, 46 hours actually surprises me, because I do believe it's 52 hours as per my calculation, as by my numbers. Which simply means to say that we are working a little too much at times.
Absolutely, too much at times. In fact, most times. Harish Bijoor, thank you very much, sir, for joining us on that very important story. This is a tragic death, but it also shines light on what we call burnout. And it goes on to reflect that it wasn't just one Anna, many people who have succumbed to burnout. And the figures, of course, tell you a tale of where Indians are overworked, they are underpaid, and they are stressed. Surveys on surveys are suggesting that, and it's time for corporate India to change that image.